The third season of Daryl Dixon recently wrapped, and I'm feeling quite conflicted about the show. While I feel like this season is infinitely better than the past two seasons, I feel like it's also missing everything to do with The Walking Dead. It comes down to character references. We don't get a single mention of Rick, Judith, Michonne, RJ, anyone that Daryl has come to know. Hell, we don't even get Carol mentioning Ezekiel, her literal ex-husband, or Henry. Any of these characters basically are forgotten about for the show trying to stand on its own, and I think the show is immensely hurt by it. It doesn't feel like a show set in the Walking Dead universe. It feels like they want to do a soft reboot where, what if Daryl was always in Europe kind of thing. Even though the entire first season was predicated on the whole point that Daryl went to Maine in order to try to find Rick. How he missed Philadelphia, I'll never know. He never went there. He went all the way up to Maine, though, and he got shipped off to France, of all places. So one of the issues I have kind of going in this season is the episodes are pretty forgettable. I watched each episode as they came out. I enjoyed the hour of television, but I was left wanting after each episode. The first episode was quite solid as a whole. However, none of it matters, as we don't make it to America, and the Englishman that we meet ends up dying by the end of that episode. Episode 2. I feel like none of that really matters because we all know that Carol's going to get better. We know Daryl's going to be fine, even though he's getting into some trouble. We know his antics aren't really going to hurt him or anyone around him. And frankly, Justina and Roberto, their plot line is quite boring. I don't care about Roberto. Justina is actually a little bit likable, but even then, she just kind of gets into trouble because the plot necessitates it. She ends up getting taken by El Alcazar, and it's just not a good episode. Episode 2 just really was disappointing to me, even though I enjoyed it initially. So episode 3 came out, and episode 3 is fun, mostly for the fact that we get the most action. We get introduced to another character who talks to Daryl for a little bit, so we know he dies, and predictably, he does just that. After which, Daryl fights off some of the Los Primitivos, and the primitive dudes are killed by him fairly easy. The other primitives end up mounting a siege on Sol de Mar, I believe. So Sol de Mar is under siege, and essentially all of those people there who have survived 15 years in the apocalypse don't know what to do. Everyone's panicking. There's no effectiveness until Daryl comes to save the day. It really feels like the show thinks we're still in the first 5 years of the apocalypse, even though we're 15 years down the road. And it feels rough, even if the choreography is good. I think the fight scene is done immensely better than most of the Walking Dead franchise's fight scenes. The siege was quite fun. It was very reminiscent of like some old school medieval siege, and I really did enjoy it for that reason. But other than that, episode 3 doesn't really do anything. We just we get a cool little fight sequence. Episode 4, I also find to be quite forgettable. Honestly, I think that's the whole issue with 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5, and 6 are all kind of forgettable episodes. They don't really do much for the plot other than just kind of advance certain characters to places where they need to be. Justina's captured. Roberto goes after her. He gets caught. He's almost hanged. And Carol starts falling for for Roberto's dad, Antonio. And that's pretty much all that's really important. I know Daryl tries to fix the boat. That plot point keeps coming up. We waste a lot of time on the beach with the boat without any sort of payoff for the boat. Episode 5 is literally just Daryl in the desert. He doesn't really do much. He helps some lepers, he defeats some bandits, and he moves on with his life. And that episode is, again, pretty predictable, pretty forgettable, and the fight sequence that episode, pretty underwhelming. It was cool, though, that Daryl got some pretty brutal kills, especially on the bandit leader, so I didn't enjoy that much. Episode 7, I really can't tell you anything other than we find out Paz used to live in a refuge, and somehow that refuge is still up and running. She wants to kill the King of Spain or the Prince of Spain. I don't know, Guillermo. And then we find out Justina is getting sent to El Alcazar proper. So we pick up with episode 7 there, and episode 7 is probably, I would say, the objectively best episode in the entire show, including seasons 1 and 2. I find it fun. It's at least entertaining. Daryl and Paz end up infiltrating El Alcazar. Nobody asked for any proof of ID or anything, so they're able to just work as servers for the nobles. But we get some pretty cool scenes, even though we've seen it done before, including in this own show with the Walker marionette back in season 2, I believe. We get some Walker puppets here. They recreate, I'm assuming, probably some ballad from during the medieval times. It's quite fun. It's interesting. We see the nameless king of Spain and the nameless queen of Spain. So because they're nameless and they don't really do anything, we know that they're going to be killed. And yeah, so once we get down to Justina's plot in the story, I thought it was going to go a really interesting way. I thought because we know season 4 is the final season and we know Daryl's not home yet in season 4, that it was actually going to set up more season 4 plot line. But we end up getting Justina fighting kind of against 7 other girls to get chosen by a suitor. And this suitor kind of is looking at all of them, but because Justina has a little bit of spunk to her, he chooses her. And, she immediately starts planning how to break out, which I think has zero forethought. She puts a knife up her sleeve and she somehow thinks that's going to get her all the way back home. I have no idea what she was thinking, but I guess she is still kind of a younger survivor, so maybe she just hasn't had a lot of in-world experience. So Daryl, seeing this, he ends up making a plan with Paz. Paz ends up going and trying to get the Princess of Spain, and Daryl plans to get Justina. And so to do that, to create a distraction, he unleashes the Walker marionettes. And predictably, all of the nobles have no idea how to survive, even though, again, it's been 15 years in the apocalypse. All of these people have survived because the guards seem quite incompetent. I really highly doubt that the guards had anything to do with the survival of these people. So we see Daryl ends up unleashing them. They get a good kill count. It was pretty fun. Get some cool moments. We see Justina is escorted by her suitor to his room to keep her safe. The King of Spain is killed by a walker. Daryl later puts down the walker version of the King of Spain because of course he does. And Paz ends up making it over to her little friend, not friend's room, where she convinces her and her son to join her. And while Daryl is searching for Justina, he comes across 2 of the girls that weren't chosen. They're kind of stuck. Daryl started a fire. So now he feels like he needs to save them. So first he saves Justina, who for some reason pulls a knife on her suitor, and he gets mad, rightfully. Now I can't tell what they were trying to imply with him getting on top of her. I don't know if it was supposed to be more indicative of something darker or if he was just really upset that she pulled a knife, but it doesn't matter because Daryl comes in, grabs him, slits his throat. Justina absolutely does not care about it at all. And then we see them rescue the other 2 girls. So once we do that, we end up backtracking all the way out and go to Paz. Paz ends up convincing her, and Guillermo shows up and she kills one of his guards, and then Guillermo knocks her out. And for some reason, instead of killing her while she's unconscious, he decides to gloat, which gives Paz's friend, not friend, enough time to stab him in the back, governor style. And then Paz finishes the job, killing him once and for all. So now we have no big bad, only for then the groups to kind of reconvene. Paz and the other group of people who aren't Justina and Daryl all decide to stay back. Daryl takes Justina back to Sol. Story there at Sol de Mar is a lot less interesting, but just as action-packed. Carol concocts a plan with 2 other guys from the lighthouse community to go and save Antonio, who has been captured by Fede, and because he refuses to squeal, he is kind of tortured for it. Now Carol and her little commando group all try to figure out a plan, and they wait till nightfall, which once nightfall hits, they end up cutting Antonio down. A brief firefight ensues. We lose track of 2 of the commandos. Carol and Antonio are both kind of helped out by the families around the community. And unfortunately, one of the guys ends up selling her out to Fede. So Antonio and Fede are captured. He's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to kill you, or I'm not even going to imprison you. I'm just going to let you leave, but I doubt you'll leave. And he opens the door, and shocker, Roberto's there, chained up to the 2 dead bodies of the 2 commandos with a public execution planned for him because, yeah. So this public execution is going to be carried out. A bunch of walkers come. We have a little brief walker fight. Antonio ends up save his son, but when all is failing and the guards shoot away the knife from Carol, all seems lost. And then Daryl shows up, shoots some of the guards, shoots some of the walkers. Yada yada yada. Some gunfire ensues, and then Justina appears, and like Moses, she parts open the Walker Sea. Fede's like, no, we gotta protect her. So all the guards start shooting the walkers around her. It's very, very odd, and Yeah, so after all of that, she basically tells everyone, yeah, he's a liar, which causes all of them to basically betray him immediately. His mom slaps Fede. He's essentially arrested. All of his loyalists are exiled, so they all march away, hopefully to come back in the future, just because we need a villain. And Fede is imprisoned, only for his mom to let him out. And once that happens, he's like, oh, once they go back to America, they're gonna kill me. And so she lets him out, and instead of doing anything with his life, Fede becomes the most comical villain, hunts down Daryl, gives a brief monologue, and then Carol jumps on top of him, causing him to shoot the boat, and the boat blows up. Yeah. So after the boat blows up, we see that Codrone, who was teased to be the great value Morgan earlier in the episode, sees the fire and decides to walk towards it, presumably. Because the show ends very abruptly with Daryl staring at the fire. Yeah, the show ends. Overall, this season was very mid. I think it has CW level writing. I do not think it's a good show. It's better than all the other spin-offs content we've gotten, which pains me to say. Dead City Season 2 really fucking sucked. So, I don't know. Here's to hoping The Walking Dead eventually evolves and becomes better, if not outright reboots, because this show is in dire need of reanimation. Have a good one, guys. Bye.